everyone, welcome back. It's Moa, aka Swedish Whiskey Girl, and today we're going to have another look at Chivas Regal 12. I have reviewed this before, over a year ago, but I thought we could revisit it because I don't think I've tried this since I had it last. And I like coming back to whiskeys to see what's different, how we kind of see it today. I haven't rewatched my review, both because I don't like watching myself and which makes editing so much fun, and because I didn't want to put any words or tasting notes in my head. I'll put a card up here, so if you are wanting to watch the old review, please don't. You can. But yeah, today we're just having a fresh look on this one to see what we think. Chivas Regal is a Scotch. It's a blended Scotch owned by the Chivas brothers, who is then owned by Pernod Ricard. And with blends, it's quite interesting. If you ever wonder what single malts or green whiskey that might go into a blended whiskey, because that's the two components you need for a blended whiskey, you can kind of look at the company who owns the blend and kind of maybe get some hints about where the whiskey might come from. We know that Strathisla, which is owned by the Chivas brothers, is one of the kind of core components to the Chivas Regal blends. And of course it's also Strathclyde, which is the grain distillery that Pernod Ricard owns. So you put two and two together, and then you might have some other Chivas distilleries that might go into this. So it's 12 years, meaning that the youngest component in this is 12 years old. It's also bottled at 40% ABV and costs about £20 here in the UK. What's also interesting is that the Chivas brothers, you can date them back to, I believe, 1801, when they started as grocers in Aberdeen. And many of the kind of blending companies that are quite old started as grocers, and they were dealing with coffee and spices and tea. They were blending their own tea and then went on to blending whiskey. And they released in 1909 in New York the world's kind of first and oldest expression of blended whiskey. And they released a 25-year-old to kind of set themselves as a luxury brand. Of course, the war came about a few years later, not the best timing perhaps, and then also Prohibition. But in, I think, 1939, it was after Prohibition anyways, they released Chivas 12, and it's been quite popular ever since. So we are going to put that down, and I'm going to pick up my whiskey. And of course, I'd love to hear what your favourite Chivas blend is. If you have a Chivas Regal, maybe Chivas Extra, let me know in the comments below. But let's have a little look on the nose. Ooh. First of all, it feels a bit murky to me. It definitely has a sweetness in it, which for me is this kind of desserty sweetness, like vanilla, almost creme brulee, like caramelized sugar, which I am suspecting comes from the grain, because I really like this sweetness and I really like grain whiskey. Yeah, but it also has a murkiness, which makes me think of kind of wet autumn leaves in a good way. So it's the murkiness meets the sweetness, which makes the whole thing feel a bit autumny, I think, for me today. Like, it has something very crisp and sweet about it, but at the same time almost something a little bit earthy and slightly woody, but I wouldn't say the wood is at the forefront of the kind of aroma palette of it. There's also something like honey, something floral and sweet, and maybe a little bit of sponge cake. Yeah. There's quite a lot of things going on the nose, which I really enjoy. I don't know if you can hear is that pigeon singing? But yeah, a nice nose. If you like something that is quite sweet, quite a little bit of a murkiness, but quite easy to approach, quite desserty on the nose, you might like this one. But let's have a little look on the palate. Sláinte. It's very approachable. It is interesting because on the palate, I'm not getting much of that desserty sweetness at all. I am instead getting more of that earthiness. A little bit, as I would probably expect, there's a little bit of peat in it, or some sort of peated component, because it has the earthiness, but then the finish leaves something slightly charred or charcoaly, or it's the earthiness mixing in with the char, and that's what I now have on the finish. On first approach, it's quite interesting because it has a smoothness about it, and has a fruitiness, but when you swallowed it, it quickly kind of turns and becomes that earthy, charry note, which I don't mind. I would just say that if you are starting out with whiskey and you want something as easy as possible, maybe Chivas isn't the one you return to. But if you want something with a little bit more body, a little bit more of something that kind of grabs you and holds onto your finish or your palate a little bit longer, then I'd look to this, because it does have a softness of that almost smoky note that lingers on my tongue. It's quite interesting now that I've tasted it and have it on my palate. The nose is slightly different as well. The desserty sweetness has kind of mellowed down a little bit. And also, obviously, because I reviewed this whiskey a year ago, the bottle has been open for a year, so it can have changed, but it doesn't feel very dull in the glass. It still feels quite alive to me. Maybe a little bit more grassy now. I think because that kind of, this is a theory, I'm not sure if it's true, but it feels almost, because I have that little earthiness in the char on my palate, and the nose is quite light and a little bit sweeter. When I get that lingering sensation on my palate, I find it tricky to actually get anything on the nose anymore. I'm getting little bits, but it's because I think the palate's more robust than the nose. It's almost like when I've tried it, which is why I always nose it first. When I've tried it, the palate sensation overtakes the nose, because I can't really find that desserty grain sweetness anymore. But I think that's why a lot of people like Chivas as well, because it does have a little bit more body. I find 40% whiskies very fascinating nowadays, because I know it's been blended to that point where it's supposed to sit well at 40. So it's nice, because sometimes when I add water to a cask strength whiskey, I always feel like I've added not enough or too much. But sitting and drinking something that's meant to be bottled at this strength is quite fascinating, because you can really kind of look for things in it. I'd love to go to Strathisla, which is a distillery up in Speyside, which is kind of the spiritual home of Chivas Regal, and just to see it, because it looks so pretty. It has double pagodas, and yeah, I would love to go. I was supposed to go like 3 years ago and got appendicitis and ended up in a hospital instead, but I will definitely go soon again. But yeah, overall quite easy to approach. It has a little bit more of a robust note to me than some other blends that don't have the kind of earthy peat note. Don't get me wrong, it's not overly smoky, it just has something on the finish that kind of grabs your tongue a little bit and makes the finish last a bit longer. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on Chivas. Do you like it? Let me know in the comments below. And of course, as always, I want to say a massive thank you to my wonderful supporters on Patreon. I'm so grateful to have you guys with me on my whiskey journey. And I am actually now, when I'm filming, pausing my editing for the Isla video, which will be out soon. I am also trying to look into buying a vlog camera because it's not my forte at the moment, but I would love to learn to do some more vlogging in our upcoming distillery videos. But the Isla video I'm hoping will be out with you on Sunday, so I hope you'll like that one. But I hope to see you all in the next video. If you do want to support the channel, then check out my other social channels if you want to leave a thumbs up or maybe subscribe, or use my affiliate links the next time you're shopping with either Master Malt, the Whisky Exchange, or the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. You'll find out all of that information in the little section here below. But I hope you're all having a lovely day. Sláinte Skål!